First of all, I would like to thank RealPress for a good argumentation and a great video. Mostly I support the views presented by Joseph. However, I would like to use this opportunity to try to explain why I think Ahmadinejad did not do the right thing or say the right things in Geneva, even though he might not be all wrong. I would like to quote the Norwegian Minister of Foreign Affairs as he was responding to Ahmadinejad's speech. The minister said that the Iranian president's allegations were running counter to the very dignity and spirit of the conference. I interpret this not as a judgment on whether Ahmadinejad is right or wrong, but as a warning to the Iranian president that his hard line on the Middle Eastern question is reducing the chance of reaching a solution. As one of the main benefits from reducing racism is easier problem solving and reduced conflict, the Iranian president's allegations were running counter to the spirit of the conference. Even though the conflict between Israelis and Palestinians is an important one, and one that might be closely linked to racism, it is a very difficult problem to handle, and therefore might not be the best approach to a conference on the global problem of racism that has the goal of reaching a constructive conclusion. And I believe that is an important clue in international relations, that the world is full of problems and you cannot solve them all at once. You have to handle them one by one. And this was a summit meant to handle racism and not the crisis in the Middle East. That brings me to the other Western delegates and representatives who chose to respond to Ahmadinejad's speech by walking out. I absolutely believe that was a wrong response. The West is talking so warmly of how one should solve international problems and conflict by talking to each other, and if that is your strategy, then you cannot walk away from the problems like that. In the 20th century, the rules of power and politics have changed. In previous centuries, the rule had been that the victor of a war would gain new territory. Survival and expansion of the fittest, if you like. International organizations such as the League of Nations or the United Nations tried to curb such aggression for expansion through international law and through indirect or direct guarantees of international response to such aggression. But how should one interpret what happened in Palestine after the Second World War? The first observation should be that Jews, through military action, expanded into areas populated by Arabs. Some would say that the Palestinians, especially those who have been displaced, have gotten their rights violated, rights put up by the United Nations, and therefore has a right to return home. Then there are those who would say that through more than 6 decades of being, the Israeli state has legitimized its very existence. Even though this might seem simple and cruel, it is the fact that politicians have to face. The undoing of the Israeli state is just not an option. To complicate matters even more, the Israelis have a well-founded claim of legitimacy in the establishment of their Jewish state. Legitimacy through the UN partition plan for Palestine, and also through numerous promises of a Jewish state. Take for instance the Balfour Declaration. Throughout the second half of the 20th century there were several wars between Israel and its Arabian neighbors. Wars from which Israel mostly emerged victoriously. Were these wars Arabian wars of defense against Israeli expansion? Or were there Israeli wars of defense against Arabian aggression? And if so, can the Israeli territorial gains be justified as defensive measures? I'm not going to try to answer these questions, and I doubt that any such answers would have any practical value. Instead, I want to express my support for the plans for the creation of a Palestinian state, a real, sovereign Palestinian state. I believe that is the best solution to the problems in the Middle East. Do not let the conflict between Israelis and Palestinians cloud the efforts on other areas. Rather, make a lasting solution to this problem, clear the way for solutions to so many others.